sa shi bei yin shu shin me do zhang re ra lin xin nian de jian ba ni san jie xin du mi de o wa li zhou wen nam da xin la zhi ba xiu yi dang guru rana min zha la gam ni ya ta ya min ten ba nyam min ten ba chung den de ge za dang ba chi bin mi pang gun jiao wei long den pa hua tong min xia san jie chang sen song la so wa de ma wa dang min zhen qiu xia jie jiao wei tie ra gun de zhang bei yang san men ten si pa zhou lu zhou xia ma wei tu gen song la so wa de gun de dang bei ko ban to xin ne ni ji si gang zhou la sen zhe ben le lang den bei tam lang zhou pa pa hua la yi xiao la so wa pa bei gong ba sen zhen da wa cha ya se tu wo ri bei ko ju chi ya se ri bei ko ju ni bei xia ri bei wang chu song la so wa Kang ye chen ye wei se cha xie zang gen den na wei lam du xiong ma da nian ji men ba sen zhe jia wei se xie wa la yi xia la so wa de ya gun nian jie rang su me ga chang zhou wei ten du kang re gong bei zhen din zhen la ji zhou wei ten ji jia din zhen jia ci xiao la so wa Ran zhang song ra gun la da wei mi ye san ta ba zhe bian zhong wo qiu zhe wei jue bei ta gen zhe ba sen zhe xin nian nam la so wa de ban den la me nam ba ta wa la jie ji zang niang lo da mi ji xin jie zhe le gua tong wei nu gu qi la me qin la sen la jiu ba ra xiu xiu
对的嘞。好，老师，当俺这考上，金别国的些别考了上升的金包差呢，但的人学习金包，学习金别国的人学习。
Good morning. In the previous class, we studied about the material giving. So, what is meant by material giving, and so there are three different types of the material givings. And then today, we come to page number 104, the giving dharma, the second type of the practice of generosity.
Oh yeah, that the 슝코라나 라 니바 추지 짐바니 현된의 옹글 추시 롱보 소 현주 개발을 주요 탑치버디 인사 다 추지마.
In the text, it says, giving dharma is to altruistically engage in the techniques for training others in virtue, such as, for instance, conferring empowerments, explaining dharma, giving reading, transmission, and the like.
哎呀，对，他既然在外给学的，学给金巴塞的，得了呀，让正他什么找不起用途，他这个他们找不起下边呢，他让给老百姓，让给推不起、撒不起，的那让给看写不的，没了吧，我这写不的样，他学给金巴去下个头，他们这的人，他说是了，娘用看没为那样，老百姓写不的，他这个没了吧，我这写就是吧，我的学给金巴，他们找不起下个头。
In the case of the giving dharma, the practice of giving dharma also explained in three different types. The most common one is including helping others or the sharing your knowledge to others. Even if you don't have any experience or the kind of the experiential understanding, but what you know, if you teach others, then that has become the most common practice of giving dharma.
大学个节目รับ着不的，小着不的，大这个让经济的先经济个给军系，让经济个军的系，先经济个用的系呢，的你结果讲呢，让经济个投入，先经济绝了几的你个是那想去什么几个，的那什么了吧，各个呢，偏什么就过呢，让呢他去直接就送别人，他的钱去直接就毛都没送别人样，他的学个节目从下头。
And the uncommon or the exceptional, the giving of dharma is referring to the how the Bodhisattvas teach or share their knowledge to others. So this kind of teaching by the Bodhisattva is induced 100% by a kind of the altruistic intention after overcoming from the self-cherishing mind and the realizing the benefits of others' cherishing mind. So even if the way how we teach others is same, but the difference is mixed by the intention. So Bodhisattva's intention is 100% for others. There is no any element of the self-centered attitude or the selfishness. So if we teach what one knows to others without any expectation to return, so that has become the exceptional, the practice of giving dharma.
对呀，今天的兄弟呢，玩家让多嘛，这些把它现在的走路车上，送你咱们民风的送下，车上所给团到什么国家的把毛特别认得了，当年什么些现对这个现在年代前面吧，他学习这个些的原因的，对现对前边给送你咱们都现对我们的车工都是我的，送你的那对送我们的没得是我的。
However, until your own selfish aims are exhausted, even if you intend to benefit others, nothing more than a facet which resembles benefiting others will result from your effort. So if one is still under the control of the selfishness or the self-centered attitude, then even if one teach others, that is not become the highest form of practice of giving dharma to others.
我也第一当我做的，我了嘛来我都做的，我做不看见别人了，出去嘛不就要去，因为天南的，高等别出去的，高等你没出去的那了，他想就是我们现在做着的，高等别给些都是下的要的，高等别给他出去之前就是说，做多半呢马送的。 高等别给现在都知道，各个人呢，现在上工钱呢，他现在去给他上路有的呀，小学生娘的现在他出去去，他真正忙不去呢，多边呢，可能不是真的没有起来，小学生过年。
regarding this kind of the practice of giving dharma is also reflecting the practice of the bodhicitta. So as you know, in the Tibetan Buddhist tradition, there are 4 or the 5 denominations, and the Kadam tradition one of the oldest. So within the Kadam tradition, there were many the great practitioners or the scholars, starting from the great Dromdemba. So they are commonly considered as the true practitioner of the bodhicitta or the mind of enlightenment. So regarding the practice of the bodhicitta, the scholars which belongs to Kadam tradition are incomparable.
Aya de indu da on jung ge logju xie do de on ge xie dom ba la gu xie sum ji nyam ne gu xie sum ji yin ba nyam su len ba tang sum je la chu ji pen do bo ni kep kang che la xue be.
So, and then the next here comes one kind of the story in the form of the question and answer. So this is a kind of the contact or spiritual the debate or the question answer between the Geshe Tenpa and the others. So previously, when the 3 spiritual brothers asked Geshe Tenpa between practicing in seclusion and benefiting beings with the Dharma, which is of greater benefit?
Aya da ge xie dom ba la gan de xue ni gu xie sum se de da zhom dom be ge lo ma yuan na min sum de re bo do wa jian ga wa pu zhong wa na ba sum de re de yang xiang ju sum ba ji re den je ge ko na ba sum ge ya gan de xue de dang an zhe yan ba le ne na pen do cha du ye sim je la ba chu do xie jie ne pen do che du ye se gan de xue ba le.
So these 3 spiritual brothers are referring to the 3 main disciples of the Dromdemba. They are Bodhowa, Jengawa, and Pujungwa. So 3 renowned the scholar or the practitioners in the Kadam tradition. So these 3 disciples or the spiritual brothers asked one day to their teacher Geshe Tenpa, so between practicing in seclusion, staying in retreat, and benefiting others with the Dharma, teaching or explaining Dharma to others, of which these 2 is greater in terms of the benefit? So they asked this question to the Geshe Tenpa.
Aya da de len de la zhom dom be kar sung la na dom be xie ni rang ju la nyam de jian me be le tang bo ka sa gi sim je la chu ji pen da je pen da je me do che la nu dong mo jo da zha che la wong ju me de ne dang la ba ma ne ma sim yi chang da zha de dang la ro ju me song le.
To answer this, the great Dromdemba said, a person at the initial stage, so this is referring to the beginners who have no any experiential understanding in the spiritual practice, especially with regard to the bodhicitta and compassion. A person at the initial stage who has no experience and realization whatsoever cannot benefit sentient beings with the Dharma. Their blessings are like an empty vessel filled another, for there are no blessings to receive. Their instructions are like beer in which the yeast was not added, for their instructions lack taste.
Aya da de indu ge xie dom be ge sung tang bo de la da nga ra so le tang bo re nga ra so je ge ngen jong ge lo sam lo kan me da ko ye jong dang den je ge ne lo da ko ye jong zhe bo dang ta be yun de zhe bo kan yang ma dong ni le tang bo su su ji wo nga ra so se wo re da le tang bo la nyam do ge yun de kan yo ma da nyam do nyam le se kan yo ma re de la de do we yun de kan me ba yin du den je ge ga sa je ge sim je la pen to ge yu pen do chi gi sa ji da pen je to ma re so da so so ge sam lo de pen do chi gi sa ji sam lo yue be ne tuan le pen to ma re so re.
So what is the main message of the answer of the great Dromdemba? So in this section it says that the initial stage or the beginners like us, so who is not able to cultivate sense of renunciation so far, and also fail to see the defects of subcyclic existence, and unable to see the positive qualities of the higher and superior beings. So such kind of the person or the beginner, even if one wishes to benefit or help others, his wish or desire will not succeed because he has no any spiritual qualifications.
대인도 제름부지 라브는 나로라 현지주도 라 토마라니 되고서서다 현주지 펜토 현라 펜토바 제발라 당보 수수 펜도 요바 지쇼스 랑유 되고리 이제네 송도와 대인 지버레.
So regarding these, the Lama Tsongkhapa said that in order to help others to tame their mental continuum, so first it should be one's own mental state should be purified. So without purifying one's own mental continuum, or without the taming or subduing one's own mental continuum, there is no way to help others.
대인도다 가든베 숭규체는 배만 자연도 배라 자연도 갈라 소소라 냠도 연대 감매되는 이제 신도 침마도 배대 가려서나 말아서 퍼버저에다 퍼버 동버로 파주 루야가요 말로 그봐 퍼버직 강보지 직동보에는 파주 루야지요 말로 동벌에 동버간 라요 말로 되게 직거를 송래.
So if one who is lacking any spiritual experience or understanding or the realization, then even if he tries to help others to tame their mental continuum, so this is exactly similar to a kind of the empty vessel. So if there are two different empty vessels, then if we try to pour something from one another, so this is useless. There is nothing to pour. So this is similar to the beginners who has no any experiential understanding or the realizations. Without having any realization or understanding, if we try to teach others in order to tame their mental continuum, then this will be fruitless.
베니바데랑 알아서 다 지den게 나로라 창저버지 예인도가라 창수하게 주된게로 야보 영화라고 교제 망부 상국도 저기 장예배가라 창랑샤세죠라 창랑세도 로주도 된 것이 뭐인바 다당보 거라네 주지 제 뒤가라 추저버 lok샤이나 다 고라 로주저 요마로 주저버 제 요마고 제랑야기 제망부지 창신인데네 고 창랑샤세지 말레 바르라 디바르들라 창카지 동변 로주요 말로 대소를 전에 소소라 냠냥 제매되는 지게 지구저버 세변에 양 당어저버 랍저저버 자변에 대를 주요 말해서 다 내가저버 요 말해서 다.
So here their blessings are like an empty vessel filling another. So blessing here, so those the beginners, if they don't have any the spiritual realizations or the experiences, so their teaching is become actually similar to teaching other the subjects like science, history, and so forth. There is no any spiritual background or the support. So that's why this kind of the teacher and students are like two different empty vessels. And the second example is beer, in which there is no yeast. So if we do not put the yeast in order to have a good beer, then the beer will not become tasteful. So this is the similar to the beginners or the someone who is in spiritual initial stage. So without any spiritual qualifications, if he or she try to teach others, so that will be not so productive.
대인의 준도마다 죄지 파주 조령시베갑라 죄지게 다 랍자마스는데 좀더 타마들 너무 가리제고요나 계란게 숭들 고주도 저도 매주도 세야들이야 쉬고도 그래서 주의제가 숨겨야래 주의하래 내게 가서를 단답하도 주의와 모두 주의며 시험만용 숨겨야 되래 다 드리요래 대인도 드리지 고요 달라며 숨셔버디 로메라 고와제더니 데레샤 네버도 펜토고도 삼바지 소돔이지 고요래 당할들라 다 딘제 소소라 냠냠매나 다데 파저데 주의도 삼바 고와제트야 누워요 말이야.
So, in the course of our study, the Buddhist philosophy, especially if he really wants to put into practice what we know, so this kind of the study is very much related with the experience, the realization. Without realization or experiences, so how much we know or gain certain knowledge, the intellectual kind of the knowledge, so this will not carry weight. So with respect to this, if you look at the religious the history of the many great Buddhist masters, including the Adisha and the Dromdenpa. So in between the Adisha and Dromdenpa, they had a lot of the personal conversations, spiritual conversations. So in one of the conversations, the Dromdenpa praised the Adisha by saying that whatever you say is very tasteful. It carries a lot of the weight. So, and to respond to this, the Adisha said that so far I have never been speaking the tasteless, the speech. So this debates or this indicates how he possessed the deep realizations and the understanding. So without the experiential understanding or the experience, if we try to teach or explain the Buddhist teaching to others, so this is not going to become 100% constructive or the productive. So those teachers who really wish to try to help their students to overcome from the spiritual the obscurations or to purify their mental state, the teacher must possess some kind of the realization experience.
아야 디는 가상 로규지에 휴사를 기시 보도와도 기시 추지우세게 로규 시사를 제자 기시 보도외에 주가를 송배네 대단 주례나 요디에 미망시라 편도 용요래 관계기 기시에게 숨 님보도 고보도 전에 또 강가를 거기요 추지우세게 송주 송윤두가라 시부 평기요 말 마편야 돼 롱줄로 냠도 냠낸 매봐 냠낸당 된지 냠낸다做的 냠도 연대 매장 디시래
Related with this, in the one of the previous class, I also told you the story of the Geshe Bodowa and Chogi Weser. So, since the Geshe Bodowa was a renowned or the genuine practitioner, that's why whatever he taught is become very easy for the listeners. So, and whereas the Chogi Weser, who has no much the practice or the realizations. That's why what he taught is quite become very difficult for the listeners to understand. So this kind of difference we can also understand by attending the teaching of the different geshis and different spiritual teachers. Some are very skillful in interpretation. So some can teach the topic according to the mental dispositions of the students. So this kind of the difference in the teaching, the way of the teaching is caused by whether the teacher possesses the real qualifications or not.
준비연대 상보연대 다 개발시 매매네야 상보여고 준비여지나 멜펜도요 다 준비 상보면은 개발연대 시 펜통은 말이 배나 레진나시래다 레진벽 개발신 버리신 시부시 펜도 지도요 말에 제장 개주니데 상다 개셔슈지 개발 준비 가서 개발던 대상 준비의 상보니데.
So in our society or the world, we say that what is the criterion of a scholar, truly scholar. So in the Buddhist tradition, we call someone as great scholar if that person is possessed the deep knowledge, and if that person has possessed enough patience to deal with any kind of challenge, if that person is very the ethical and the ethical. So these kind of three qualities must possess to become a truly great scholar, or the scholar, or the learned one. So if we possess much knowledge, intellectual knowledge, if we lack the good behavior or the conduct or the ethical discipline, then the knowledge that one possesses may possible to use in a destructive the way, like a Hejin, who even if who is conventionally renowned as kind of the scholar or the intellectual, but lacking the spiritual good qualities, he became a really naughty and cruel and the ruthless person, ruthless.
아야 되지. 다들 내 당보 강에 매디니 염도 연대 매디체. 근데 대 쇼글라 간서 티고치 벌라는 자변은 장쇼에서 줄라 집에 갑 당보들라 솔람스기요래. 솔람네 뭐지네야 죄제네 졸람 당보티 졸람 죄스기요래. 졸람 죄도에 갑기 간사 디기양 심지게 되야고 지도 그래서 지도 말해주냐다 되려자. 죄도발에 되면 뭐도 뭐지에 간사게 심지게 되지 믿는데 제라 본바 강조던 자 강신 강자는 라니 동고주 다와 주미 라주던 자 신세서는 라니 제버 추르사.
And then we all know that the first, when the spiritual practitioners, once he or she could cultivate the bodhicitta, so that means that that person reached at the first level of the spiritual path, the path of accumulation. And the second one is path of preparation. So path of preparation has 4 levels starting from heat. So in the text it says that the bodhisattva who reach at the second level of the path of the preparation still cannot help others just as we wish. So if such kind of bodhisattva cannot fulfill others' desire, or they cannot help others just as we wish, then there is no mention to the ordinary beings like us. To explain this, the text says, a person at the aspiring contact level, that is talking about the path of accumulation, a path of preparation, of practice, who has attained heat. Heat is the first level of the second path, but is not stable in their practice, is not fit to work for the benefit of sentient beings.
와야 다 졸람 주세게 가블야 다 저데 렌제 세야수리 동번이게 되는데라 뭐에 돈이 모두 배도 쉬우지 때부터 요새 말에 졸람 주 전부 수업세지로 다 수배가라 동번이는 잡아 매버 수부터 시기여로 대인도 졸람 주 타베 가블라 배지 내준제기 되는데 시우지 예식 때부지 더 매서래. 대전 체외 갑라 배지 록대게 넘버도 용약이 인가 요인서. 디지기 졸람 주바와 간사지기 장주선바 지기 심지기 된 시단디 컨제에서는 다라니라 동반이기 된도 되여리 장주선 기디여리 대연대대 토네 밀파 냠 펜도집에 갑라 배나 뉴 강모지기 뉴 동벌로 파셔원나 시리스. 파셔데 뉴 동벌데 파女动物了把路用的宿舍的女动物加入多，等等，那个不到不去都要嘛的。
So their blessings are like one vase filling another, for they themselves empty, just as the other is filled. So this is the analogy. So at this time there are 2 different vessels. One is full and one is empty. So so this is the example of how the bodhisattva, who is the second level of the path of preparation, engages in benefiting activities benefiting others. So in the Bodhisattva who is at the path of accumulation and preparation, they have still not gained the direct perception of emptiness. They have still not able to realize the very subtle interdependent origination based on faith. So what their realization is just assumption. It's what they have understood, emptiness and other subtle qualities of the Bodhisattva is become a kind of the realization which gained or acquired through the science and the reasons, not direct understanding. So during this, the Bodhisattva still cannot help others just as they wish, or still cannot help others just as Bodhisattva who is at the path of seeing or the path of meditation. So at this level, the way how Bodhisattva extend help to others is very similar to two different vessels. One is empty and one is the full. So Bodhisattva himself is like full and the listeners are empty. So if we try to pour something from the full filled vessel to the empty, then there is something to pour. But during the first one, at the initial level, the example is both vessels are empty.
대단지 되는 변이바데 알아서 나군지 나라라 라발이야 말미저버 제외나 대체외 가라 라번에 파주 제인도가라 현세계에 수수 접직도 수수 통면도 수수 나군자들 지지들이 현파주 제외가라 랑데 현세와 지요 디소리 전에 수수게 다단데 산 졸음 주발라서 두저기 현대 시단데 현대 부탁부지 지도요 말에.
And the second analogy or example of the Bodhisattva who is at the path of preparation is like a lamp being passed from one to another in dark the area. For these themselves obscures just as the others is lighted. So in a dark room, if we pass a lamp to a second person, so even if that lamp the light of the lamp can eliminate the darkness for others, others can see their path and whatever, anything around him. But the giver itself is still in the darkness. So similar to this, Bodhisattva who is at the path of preparation can help other sentient beings to eliminate their ignorance or to purify their mental state. Bodhisattva himself or herself is still under the cognitive obscuration. Still he or she cannot overcome from the spiritual, the obstacles or the obscurations.
아야 다디지 드네다 저랑 지엘라 사토바 상주스바세 토람스 그래 토람 당고토베 qabla 심제기 된지야디 야보지 줍도 그래 숭야데레 사도는 말씀제기 된 줍제 자와 인디 젤라분바 상봉고 줍단자 신심제 신탐제 멤버리 제자라니 강동미 당아마미 심마단자 신사와지 제자라니 신사와지 제자랑라 줍바 메바 인사.
And then talks about the Bodhisattva who is at the path of seeing. So the way how Bodhisattva who are at the path of seeing is different, totally different. Different from the first two. Bodhisattva who is at the path of accumulation and preparation, and the beginners or the people who are not entered in any five spiritual path. So there are three different ways how we try to help other sentient beings. First one is by beginners or the initial stage. Second one is by the first two Bodhisattva who are at the first two Buddhist path. And third one is the Bodhisattva who has entered into the path of seeing. So the way how the Bodhisattva Aryas, so that at that time the person becomes the Arya or the superior beings. Their way of helping others is totally different from the previous ones. You are at the level to accomplish the benefit of mother sentient beings once you have attained a ground. Ground here means the Bodhisattva's booming. Your blessings are like an excellent wish-fulfilling vase. You transform all others, yet yourself do not become empty. Your instructions are like a central torch. Others light up, yet you are not obscured.
아야 디인도 다 chanchusamba 사당보 되게 qabla 심제기 tuyun 시단데 제라 bomba 상봉고 좀 자세 되갈라다 아주 너버 잡이 샤연 저기래 너버 잡이는 될라데네 가사 될야다 될라 소한다베는 모두 자기 여러와 대소리 전에 chanchusamba 될라데네 심제 tuyun 줍도야 심제기 가서다 삼반나시 줍도야지 너버서 모두다 자세야지 아니 bomba서 모두다 자와레세 직당 되네 marmi shima se du gala ganzu chokse gala marmi sha yena de rangshi kanga se ge yorwa rangshi kanga se zhu yo de nan xin chen de chen ju sma sa dang mo top su na sim je ge tyen dang rang ge tyen ni ga lo yang pu tu tu ge yes.
So in this case, the example, there are again two different examples. The first one is an excellent wish-fulfilling vase. Also, we can use, if the wish-fulfilling vase is quite difficult to understand, then you can say, you can use a kind of the magic pot. So from the magic pot, you can gain whatever you wish. If you pray, then the things that you desired comes out of the pot. Similarly, the wish-fulfilling vase can give us anything that we want if we make genuine the wish. So the way how Bodhisattva, who is at the path of seeing, is like a wish-fulfilling vase. So you transform all others, yet you yourself do not become empty. If that kind of Bodhisattva gives his or her knowledge to others, still Bodhisattva himself or herself is not under the delusion or the ignorance, or so Bodhisattva's knowledge is not going to exhaust. Even if he teach whatever he knows to others, still he becomes same as before. And the second example is a central torch. So if we place a torch on the table in the center of room, so the light of the torch can eliminate the darkness in the whole the room. So that Bodhisattva is similar to a lamp placed on a table in the center of a house. So it can eliminate the whole darkness in the room. So this is unlike the Bodhisattva who is at the path of preparation.
아야 다데 가담에 계시니 보도에 숨규지 차디요리 이래양 자주스메 주변 랍자 순생교 자와 제목 공부기 도대 제나로 제베나 도대 제나 제바는 자주스메 초람네 제베산지서 거기 강사 수수기 심지 된 시당지 송요래 도대 제나로라 도대 제나로라 간제 송요라는 자주스메 초람단 졸람기 심지게 된 지기요라 다 고신 현지절로 지네 현지 지기요인데 현대 제단 현대 제발라 때네 탐지 폐제와지 펜토고요 말이야. 폐제 뒤미 다데나 리송 펜도를 지는 마도 폐제와지 뒤미 자로. 현재서 뭐 졸람.
So and then here in this text, it only explained the three different three different persons, how the three different persons can extend help to others. First by the beginner, second by the Bodhisattva who is at the path of preparation, and third, starting from the path of seeing. So their way of benefiting others, helping others is different. So that kind of difference is mixed by spiritual qualities. Their spiritual qualities or the realizations. And then also in the Maitreya Buddha's text called the Ornament of the Mahayana Sutra, so in which also explained in detail how starting from the Bodhisattva who is at the path of accumulation up to the person who is at the normal learning path, how they help other sentient beings. So it explained so many things about the manner or the effect of the benefit or the support given by each of all those bodhisattvas, starting from the path of accumulation, by saying that the bodhisattvas who are at the first two spiritual path, preparation and accumulation, even if they try their best to help others, so that kind of effort is always not going to become succeed, because since they have no the genuine qualifications, they themselves have not able to overcome from the spiritual obstacles or the obscurations. That's why they cannot fulfill others' wishes just as they want. So that is what is taught in the ornament of the Mahayana Sutra.
대인들이네 사당문에 사주에 박이 장주 선바두주 수수연대 최종의 시주여리 제인의 심지 수수수기 심지 자와 집에 갑라 폐자와지 된대 용거라 대나 레송레송 폐마도 버들이 용거라 망체지 펜토요래 사당문에 장주 선바 사주에 박이 장주 선바 수수기다 되제여라 봐 대나로 폐진 되대 폐자와 되는데 봐.
So and then starting from the path of seeing Bodhisattva, who is at the first level of the Bodhisattva's ground up to the 10th ground. So most of their effort to help other sentient beings is going to succeed.
다 탐지에 된데 산제래. 다 산제 고반 이사서는 심지에 동 가리 제외나 심지에라 펠만마도 매변배 차제도에 매버. 대인도 탐지에 된데. 다 산제 고반 조서는 탐지에 된대.
Once the Bodhisattva attained the normal learning path, or that is the state of the Buddhahood, once the Bodhisattva who is at the 10th ground moves onto the second level, that is the state of the Buddhahood, the enlightenment. Once he or she become a person or the enlightened person, then whatever they do is always 100% fulfilled or they succeed. Since the Buddha has no any the negative qualities or the obscurations, he has came from all the obstacles, whether it be emotional disturbances or the cognitive disturbances or the obscurations.
다 대인지에 계시 dombe에 계시 구시 넘버스물라 숭야에 다 존재에 가르친 거라나 냠nen시셔서 당고 견도 마치 냠nen시에서 당고 소소 냠nen시에서 달라셔들이.
So this kind of the teaching, the three different explanations regarding the way how three different persons extend help to others, teach us, in our deeper sense, teach us, we should first study it thoroughly and try to gain some kind of the experience, the realizations, and then it will not late try to help others. So without studying or without acquiring any spiritual qualities or understanding, if we try to help others, our effort is going to become meaningless. So here, to support, to help others is not referring to giving some food, some clothes for those needy person. Here, helping and supporting means only referring to taming or purifying the mental states, mental continuum of those listeners or the others.
다네 대나다다 님의 뒤에 수수지와 연바로 잠니지 장주게 섬라 공부하고 예노 시송스. 다다나 동도들의 제장 당대님의 뒤절라다 고미야 되려마도 다지게 시약 뒤절 말았은 거. 다 시야라 시에전에 시오시오 변도 지도고 말 수수랑 장바진지 장주선 고미야 뒤절에 송야지.
This being so, in this present degenerate age, you know what is meant by degenerate age. Ordinary beings are to familiarize the mind with the love compassion, the mind of enlightenment in secluded place. So this, what is meant by this is that in this degenerated time or the period. Rather to talk much, it's better to contemplate, to stay in secluded place, to cultivate some kind of the enlightened qualities. So without focusing or the contemplate or meditate on love, compassion, and so forth, if we always talk empty words, this is not going to make any positive difference.
아야, 디네 타마데 돔 제외데 몰람 지리샤. 자와 담배에서 추주에 노 추라지. 추주에 송 가서 노 주에 송 추라지. 시송보다 랑도 마세제 봐도 신도라 메랑와 칸던 대주 제외 송라 라바서 이 가지 남지 나와 년에 주주에 몰람 제외 퇴을 송송어서.
So here again comes the verse from the Patamba Sangye. So as the Indian saint, Patamba Sangye says, using the Dharma as merchandise to gain wealth. So this is happening a lot in today's the society. So many self-assumed or claimed as a Buddhist teacher, they are merchandising Buddha Dharma in order to gain some kind of the social status or the wealth and the fame. So Patamba Sangye also pointed out this kind of the reality, what is happening in our society. So the text in the says that until your own selfish aims have been exhausted, do not make haste to work for the benefit of others. Consider it sufficient to pray that the minds of positively inclined beings are liberated when they hear you praying, reciting mantra, or reading the excellent words of the victors.
디엔데 파담바 산제게 숭데 먼저 보간 제발야다 데레 견조저버리 디엔데 벤저 주베게 치도 최샤가 저 최셰데 벤저 주베게 치도 셰버데 다초 주버데 최가 노주베데 송 쳐를 지세지도 송스든 노르스 요르바 디엔데 가서 송바 속에 벤저 잘라줘 체내 파종 벤저 최시 요르바 먼저 벤저 주베데 파최셰는 최 벤저 주베데 노주 송 쳐를 지세지도
So Patamba Sangye is a great ancient Indian Buddhist scholar who criticized or who scolded the Buddhist practitioners or Tibetan Buddhist followers by saying that you are using Dharma to gain or to gain some kind of the profit, the material gains or the profit. This is totally inappropriate, unethical if you do so. So in this way, the Padamba Sangye scolded Tibetans by knowing what the Tibetans are doing at that time.
Oh yeah, this is that she lives here a lot on the team all the children and she just Tolam Togudo, that the man she do she to a yomare. Maybe in a young on the Shindu, Sawa in a Meva, Sawa in a chair, Meva the reservation, Maris, that the old la, and the shoe and Nayane, Sanjay is so up, Do danger carry low in a low, that low we got the la, some of the carry down Lana, the net that day, Gajo Jumel Lala Soba to Zuga, Amjo Yene, Conzo Jujo shows, a monum dabatia, Shogi Jimba, Shogita, Shandwichiaji tuber, Shandwichiaji T2 rules. Molam de Javiana, Madame you can't do Chigro, can't do Shangi, Koyo was some of them, Shan Yangi was some of them, Shan Yambala, then Shangi, some Union Batuzu, Jujo show, Sambegi, Molam dan Jevitone, can't do Shavena, that day on Shandeshi will come to.
So here we are basically talking about the giving Dharma, the practice of giving Dharma. So here, in order to do the highest form of the giving Dharma, one need to attend, part of seeing at least. So without the attending or the realizing the part of seeing, so if one has very strong wish and not only wish, if one practically engages in a lot of the charity the activities. So that kind of the act of giving to others is not going to become the real or the true the giving dharma or practice of the generosity of the dharma. So in order to do the best, the highest form of the dharma giving, one need to attain at least the path of seeing. So while we being an ordinary person or the person who has no attained the path of seeing, when we hear like this kind of teaching, we should not feel discouraged. Even if we have not attained the path of seeing, but still we can practice the giving dharma. Giving dharma. So if we say how we can practice the dharma or the giving dharma. So in our day-to-day life, for the followers of the Buddhist teaching, or the follower of the Buddhist teaching, we regularly recite some mantras and read some prayer text. Sometimes we read the sutra, sometimes there are commentaries, sometimes we pray and recite some mantras. When we do this kind of recitation or the reading, of course, sure there are some people around us who could hear what we are reading. So by that kind of the reading, so when we are doing recitation or the praying, we have to also make us pray, we have to wish or we have to make prayer that those people around me who can hear my voice, reading of the text, by hearing this, may this help that person to ease or to reduce their negative force or negative qualities. Such kind of the recitation with the true prayer is also become a part of practice of giving dharma.
Oh yeah, that is a chuji jimba. Chezanda chinji la karine kawayune chetoya jireja. Injimi ngazu chus edugala his chujuse ne jawaji niwa tembo chigi shiden jawaji yuvesore jiganga mado chiema shuvesore dua da timai da chu namba da bo shin ji na kawayune cheyudi samlo kawayune tangayudi jireja.
So in this way we also have to know that when we do or when we consider doing some kind of the spiritual practice, it is not necessary to sit cross-legged in a place, in a secluded place. We don't need a certain place where we say that we claim we ourselves is doing some kind of meditations or the retreat. If you really want to practice Buddha's teaching, the place doesn't make any difference. Wherever we are, we can practice. Whether we are doing or going somewhere or doing some other works. So at the same time, we can practice Buddha's teaching by focusing on our mental inclinations, the way how we think, or our motivations.
Oh yeah.
Any question? If you don't have question, then we are going to say this. Kangre rave gove shingam so pendang dewa mali jungwe ne jire singwa dindin gyado yi shabe sidi pardo dengyu ji chanju simjo rinpo ji magi panam yejuru ji jiwa nyamba nyamba yang kone kundu
데